I am recording this while I am currently processing grief. So I thought about today's episode. I had something else planned, and I just decided that I would actually talk about this instead. Because I think that, I don't know, I think it would be valuable for me to process, and I think it also would be valuable for you to experience. So, welcome back to another episode of the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, where it's all things you, me, and Jesus. You are listening to this episode on Sunday, April the, I don't know, what's the date? Let's see. It's Sunday, April the 14th, and I'm actually recording this on April the 11th, and the loss happened yesterday on April the 10th. So this is not a person, it's my cat. And so some may say, oh, it was a cat, but listen, just hear me out, and then you'll understand this with as you process your own grief. So my cat Eddie was turning 16 this year. He may already be 16. We're turning 16 this year. And basically, I have had Eddie almost half my life. Like, that's a very, very long time. Like, I know this cat through and through. This cat, like, from a cat's perspective, knows me through and through. And to be in the room with him as he took his last breath was devastating. And I just kind of thought about having this conversation with you because I guarantee you that you have some unprocessed grief. You're going through grief. Or at some point in time in life, you will go through grief. And I just wanted to just share what it is that I am doing to navigate this. So Eddie, I've had him for years, and then I moved to a place I couldn't have cats. So for like 4 or 5 years, he was with my mom. I'm glad he's still alive because that's a whole nother story for another day. But as a result of being there, I can't imagine how stressful it was. Just all the things that he endured being there. Like, I just won't even go into all that. And so about 7 years later, I went to see him. I went to go see my family, and I saw him, and I was like, oh, shoot, let me get my cat. So I brought him back home, nursed him back to health and all the things. And then back in like 2018, I had a dream. God is so kind. He told me that Eddie was dealing with something, and I needed to take him to the doctor. So I can't remember what the doctor said back then, but I just kept focusing on loving my cat, taking care of my cat, and all the things. And as the years have gone by, he started to develop something large in his stomach. I thought he was just fat, right? And it was a year and some change ago, we did an actual scan on him because like we felt like he had some issues with his kidneys. And they were like, oh, he has a really huge mass on his kidney. And that's why he goes to the restroom so much. And that's why, you know, if you notice him like resting a lot after he walks, is because like it's probably really heavy on him. And so just over the last year, I've just really noticed him just get more tired and more tired, more tired. Still fairly energetic, but like just more tired. I then started noticing him becoming more clingy. And I know I've learned that that's like a sign of cat near end of life or whatever. And so God just kind of told me, he was just like, hey, be mindful that you don't have a lot more time with him. And I was like, what? It was just all of a sudden one day, God was just like, you don't have a lot more time with him. Spend as much time with him as you can. And I was like, I mean, that shocked me to my core. But I also felt like that was God's kindness to tell me that, you know, because he didn't have to tell me. But because he did, I looked at Eddie differently. I treated Eddie differently, you know, and it's just been beautiful to just be with my cat, spend more time with him. Just, you know, I have 3 cats or whatever, just treat them differently, just, And the thing that kind of took a turn for the worse was it happened on Monday. And on Monday, I noticed he had like some blood around his mouth, and I thought it was because he was messing with his toenail, because he had messed up his toenail, had torn, and we were healing it and all that. But then it just became worse within like an hour, and I was just like, wait a minute, something's going on here. And I was like, oh my God, I think it's happening. And so I get him to the doctor, and they're just like, well, we think he has an ulcer. But then she took him to the back. She goes, no, he has cancer in his stomach. And so, all the A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And she goes, so what you're experiencing is the result of that. And I was just like, so she starts going, we can do all these tests. We can do this and this and this and all this stuff. And it was getting up to like $1,000 some odd dollars. And I was just like, if Eddie was like 10, I would 100% like do all those tests. Eddie is 16. Eddie already is all the things, you know what I mean? And so I had this like really hard decision to make. And this decision was like, it couldn't be about money. It had to be like, yes, I could spend $1,000, whatever, or run all these tests and all this stuff. And I asked her, I was like, but what is the truth? And she goes, the truth is he is 16. He's got huge mass on his kidneys, and he got nodules on his lungs. She was like, this is the truth. And I told her we're going to move to Texas. She said, I don't think he's going to make it with you to Texas next month. And I said, and I just kind of was like, just taking all that in, just being like, his body is already telling me what is happening because of the blood, it sounds kind of gory, but And so I just said, okay. And she was, initially I was going to just put him down at that moment. And she was just like, no, I want to give you some more time with him. We'll put him on a very high dose of morphine or something like that. And you can take him home. He's going to be really tired for 2 days, and you can bring him back. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. That way I get more time with him. And so I spent the rest of Monday, all of Tuesday, just being with him, like sitting hours on the floor, like working from my laptop, just sitting with him on the floor because he didn't want to be on the couch, laying down, just doing all this stuff with him. And I remember Tuesday night, because I knew that like Wednesday morning was like the moment, and I was just like, God, can you please get Eddie to come to bed? Because like normally he would like come in and mess with me at night, but he wasn't doing that because he was just feeling so discombobulated with the medicines. And God was like, yeah, I can do that. Well, he didn't come in that night. Well, that morning, the morning of the procedure, I'm just like calling to him. And I can see him. He comes in and he like lays on the floor. And I just said, I'm just going to pick him up, put him on the bed with me. And he was able to just be there with me for like from 6 a.m. to like 10 o'clock. And I was just like, we're going to be here. I'm going to do all this with you for the next many hours. And I just spent the time with him, and then I took him in and they did the euthanasia. And it was the worst moment of my life besides when I went through divorce. Because it was like, he just laid there, while they were putting the, and I just held him until he breathed his last breath. And I was like, wow, like I've never experienced that with like anything before. And I was just like, whoa, this is really hard, but at the same time, I felt like I was his mom, it was like my responsibility to be there with him as he is going to the next phase, and one thing that I will say was so comforting was at a point when she was putting the final saline, which is just like water, it just kind of pushes it through. I looked down at the doctor and she was crying. And I was just like, okay, she's not just doing a job, but she has empathy, and it was just kind of comforting to hear someone in my time, just like being there because I don't have a spouse and none of my family or my friends were able to be there. But knowing that somebody was there, and that had empathy and compassion. And at the end of it, she was just like, you were a good mom. She was like, I could tell by how you treated him, how you treat the other ones. You're a good mom. And I knew that, but it was just nice to hear somebody say that. And I just, when I left there, I just had to remind myself, like, this is the best decision because he was in pain. I was giving him pain meds every day. I'm like, he was in pain. He couldn't tell me he was in pain. And I kept him because I love him. I loved him, And I remember just getting home and just being like, God, you are so kind because you told me, like, was 6 years ago that something was going on with him. But you also told me that I rescued him when I got him back from my mom's house. It's wild what the things God was telling me about him. And I'm like, God, you told me a year ago that the time was coming. You gave me a year to just be with him, And I got to take more photos and videos with him before he transitioned, all the things, and just all that. And just being like, wow, God is so kind, because most people have no idea, no clue. But because I have a relationship with God and he's such a good father, he's like so kind enough to tell me all of these things in advance. He's just so kind. And I just think about how, like, God cares about everything. Sometimes we're like, oh, it's just an animal. And it's like, God created that animal. You know what I mean? He cares about, I love the cat, but he loves them more. And he's so kind and cares about so much. He cares about what we care about. And I just think it was so kind of him to just love me the way that he did, to tell me in advance. I was asking him the other day, he's like, well, how much pain is he in right now? 0. And I'm like, well, when he comes off of this pain meds, what level pain is he going to be at? I think it's like a 9. And I was like, oh man. And Wednesday morning I said, how much pain is he in? He said a 6. I was like, a 6. Oh man. And it just helped me to like ask him these very specific questions and to know, so that when I was making a decision, that I was making it fully informed. And so now, just as I am dealing with grief of losing my cat, one of the things that I'm allowing myself to do is just feel. When I was just kept crying and crying and crying, I just kept saying, I'm so glad that I can feel this. I'm so glad that I can feel this. Because it hurts to feel, but it's like, it's worse when you have no feelings, and I'm just like, I'm so glad that I could feel this. When I got home, like there was this box that he kept staying in, it had like some blood in it and stuff. And I was just like, this can't stay here. This is hurtful to me. Let me get rid of that. And I was like, okay. And then the blanket he normally sleeps on, I'm like, I'm not going to get rid of the blanket. I'm just going to wash it, and then I could see the bowl he would eat out of. And I was like, Kenya, you don't have to do this today, but you're going to have to wash his bowl. You're going to have to put it away. And then you're going to have to get your other cats acclimated to life without him. Not right now, but just, over time. And then I've just been like making space for thinking about him, not pretending I'm not sad. Like if I'm sad, I take a moment and I feel the sadness and I cry about it. And when I'm ready to move on in that moment, then I move on. When I feel like I miss him, I go to all the videos that I recorded of him and I just watch them and I just cry. And I have these moments where I just miss him. I'll just say, Eddie, just miss you so much. Not calling out to the dead, but you know what I mean? I'm just like, I just say it. I've been watching my cats look for him. Like, oh, it's been so sad kind of watching them look for him. Like they're just looking and they're just like, you just see them like circling the house looking for him. And they're like, they don't really know what to do. And I'm just allowing them to navigate this space without him. You know, I am planning on getting a nice little picture of him like printed or something like that, and I'll probably get like all three of them printed or whatever. And where the cat bowls will be in my new house, I'll probably put them up there or something like that, because this, you know, it's my house or whatever. They had asked me if I wanted his ashes, and I'm like, no, that's creepy. No, I don't want that. I let them they cremate them, and then they put it in the ocean here in California, San Diego. And I've just been allowing myself to feel instead of focusing on everything in life that I could be focusing on. I'm just like, no, I'm sad. But I'm also like, what do I need? So I've texted a couple people that I'm close to, and they're saying, what do you need? I'm like, just check on me because I'm sad. I'm also canceling things with people because I'm like, if people are going to be in my house, they're going to be asking me questions, and I don't want people in my house right now. I just want to be, this is really just happened. I want to be in this sacred space without other people. I'm supposed to be at some events with people who probably know my cat passed away. And I'm like, I'm not going to go to those events because one thing I've learned in therapy is that not everybody is emotionally available, emotionally intelligent. Not everybody has a filter. Not everybody has empathy and compassion. And so, meaning that I could be in a group of people, it could be in a group of 3, and people are saying whatever they think I want to hear, or telling me their animal dying stories or whatever, or how they felt when their animal died, when they don't really realize that's not the moment for that. The moment is to just be there with me, asking how to support me. Like when a friend of mine had something very traumatic happen recently, and I just told her, I was like, I don't know exactly how to be here. I am here, whatever you want to talk about. I want to ask you more questions about this, but if that's going to hurt you, I'm not going to do that. And so I'm telling you this so that if I'm not asking a lot of questions, it's because I'm being sensitive, but I want you to tell me as much as you want to tell me. I can handle as much or I can handle as little, and just, I have the ability to say that to her, but not everybody has that. I had somebody that started sending me articles about processing grief, and I'm like, I know that you mean well, but that doesn't help me in the moment. And how I'm going to respond to you probably wouldn't be how I would be 6 months from now when I'm not in this heightened emotional state. So I'm just staying away from people for right now, because it's too hard to not know how people are going to act, or compassion or lack of compassion or empathy, or I just don't know. And I'm just talking to the people that I know have it. I am just processing with God and giving myself what I need. I'm making sure that I'm eating, I'm making sure that I'm getting outside, getting exercise, drinking my water. I'm making sure that my other cats are okay. I'm making sure that they're eating, that they feel loved, that they're getting a lot of attention. One thing that I knew was going to happen, I knew Faith was going to miss him. That's the little one, because she wasn't afraid of him. She would go toe to toe with him. So she's going to miss him the most. So I've just kind of been watching her, but she seems okay. Maui, I knew Maui would, I knew she wouldn't be happy that Eddie would be gone, but she would also be happy. Because Maui was in our house for the longest time, super sweet, super chill and calm and all the things. And then when Eddie came, Eddie was kind of like a terror for her. And so she just always stayed up on a chair. She was just always out of line's eye with him. And I watched her circle the house looking for him. She just circles and circles and circles. And she's not finding him. But I'm also watching her just be back to the old Maui before I brought Eddie back home, where she's just on the floor. She's chilling. She's she's not operating in a heightened state or whatever, like she has been the last 7 years since Eddie's been back with us. He was gone for a couple and then came back. But again, this is day 1. This is 24 hours since we've lost him, and I'm just giving myself and the cats space and grace for whatever it looks like. You know, I miss my cat. I miss his sound. I miss his fur. I miss him walking around the house with me. I miss him screaming when it's time for lunch. I miss his long claws and just all the things that went along with this cat. But I'm really glad that I got 16 long years with him. Am I going to get another one? No, I already have two. I'm believing God to bring me a husband. Okay. So I'm like, no, let's just let that be what it was. But I wanted to share with you me and how I'm processing my grief so that you can give yourself permissions for whatever it is that you need. I guarantee you that you've gone through some stuff and you felt like you needed to be strong, you need to be whatever. No. I meet people all the time that they lose a loved one. They're like, well, I got to be strong for. I'm like, no, you don't. No. God is the strong one for them. You don't need to be strong for them. You can't be strong for them. You're going to break down at some point in time in your life if you don't allow yourself to be weak in this. But for whatever reason, people feel like this obligation of strength. And it's just like, you don't have to be that, because that's why Jesus died. You know, I remember when I was going through divorce, I heard God say, you can't die trying to save Rashad. That was his name. You can't die trying to save him. I was like, what? He was just like, I died for him. That's not your responsibility. And you can try to die for him. You will die, but you still won't save him. I said, well, that's one way to put it, but it made total sense. He's got to make choices for himself that I cannot make. And so I can't die for him, you know? And so when I look at people in my life that I want to bear the cross for us, no. And so I wanted to share my grief with my cat, so that you could figure how you can process the grief that you have around whatever it is you have it around, because the grief is still the same. It may be harder when it's a person, you know, but it's still the same. You still got to navigate all the things, and you still have people at play and all that, but you get the decision to make. You get to decide what it looks like to you. So hope you enjoyed this. I still appreciate your prayers. Even though I'm doing this episode, I'm still very heartbroken about it all. And it's going to be a process, and I'm going to give myself that process, that time. Okay. So thank you so much for listening and watching.